Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about the decline of Rick Kelly. He's the 2006 V8 Supercar champion and the 2003 and 2004 Bathurst winner. Retired at the end of 2020. I just wanted to talk about it because I think it's an interesting subject. One of the great drivers of the last 20 years hung up the helmet, and you sort of wonder why he did that. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me when he did. Eventually it was probably going to happen, and so I was okay with that, but it's not always self-explanatory. Craig Lowndes, he'd been in the sport for over 20 years. Eventually he was going to have to stop, and to have a good year after 2017, it made sense for him to do that in 2018. He knew he was competitive and it was a good time to go. We had Jamie Whincup retire at the end of 2021. He retired in the first year where someone else could have done a better job, and that's what I think Rick Kelly did. The key focus here is the comparison between Andre Heimgartner and Rick Kelly. So Andre was obviously Rick's last close challenger teammate. In 2018 he also had Michael Caruso, but Andre managed to beat him. And also over the 3 years that they were teammates, it makes sense to look at just those two. In 2018, Rick obviously had the upper hand. He was getting the better results. He swept the floor with the rest of his team. Andre got one top 10 at Barbagallo in 2018, and then he got 3 in a row from the second race at Pukekohe, and then both races at Newcastle. In all 3 of those last 3 races, he was beating Rick. So that was the first time that he was showing that he could beat Rick, which it's not an easy thing to manage. You don't easily beat Rick Kelly. In retrospect, it looks like that's the start of where Andre started to really push to get his results, and maybe Rick could have done better, but hey, I can't rewatch that race. Then we go to 2019, where the Nissan wasn't as great a car as it was in 2018, but it wasn't that great in 2018, they just had it sorted a little bit better. 2019, Andre got technically 2 podiums, but one of them was the front row in the race for the grid at Sandown, but the other one was his maiden podium at Phillip Island. It was a bit even for both of them, but increasingly we see Andre do better than Rick. And then in 2020, there's the Mustangs. I thought Rick was going to do a good job, and I think maybe a lot of people expected Rick was going to do a good job, because in 2019 you could have said, oh, it's the car, the Nissan isn't a great car. 2020 comes along, it's the Mustang. You don't really have any excuses. They built it from the ground up. Maybe that was a bit of a difficulty, so you could excuse maybe the first half of the season, COVID, and logistical difficulties. Todd Kelly was building an engine on the side of the road on the way to Darwin. But at the end of the day, Andre got the best results for the team. Andre got the best results for the team in terms of starting position and race finish position in 2019 and in 2020. It was just a very clear sign that Andre was doing that much better than Rick. But Rick didn't have the worst year of it. He got top 10 at Adelaide, and you expect those sorts of results from someone like Rick Kelly. When he does a good job, you go, well, that's where he should be. It constantly seemed to be Andre was the one doing the better job. So he ended up retiring at the end of that year, and now I'm thinking there are a few reasons why a driver like Rick Kelly would want to do that. The first reason is he's a young man with a young family, and so it's important to spend that time with your family. Some of us might remember little Lex Kelly interviewing the drivers in 2020 at Darwin, and that was great. It was really good to see. It was a reminder for me that Rick Kelly's been around a long time. His son's interviewing people. And then the other reason is Rick won the 2003-2004 Bathurst and the 2006 championship. And he did that at a really young age. I think he won the championship at 24 years old. And then it makes sense. You just keep going for another 10 years and try and get the result to happen again. And he probably wanted to prove to himself to that and to everyone that he could do it again, that the championship wasn't a fluke. He was always good at Bathurst. Then there's also the similar example of his brother Todd Kelly. who, well, Todd obviously won Bathurst, but he didn't win the championship, so that you'd stay around for a long time to try and win the championship if you could. And then when you're running your own team, you want to get the best results that the team can get, and make sure that those results can come, and also have a hand in the development of the car by driving it yourself and saying, this is an issue, we need to fix this. But then Todd retired at the end of 2017, replaced with Andre. Andre starts getting better results, and then you think, maybe we could put another young guy in the car and get those better results. And that's what Rick decided to do. It's always the what if he was still in the field sort of situation. A lot of the drivers, when they retire, it's for a good reason. They don't see it getting better, and they could spend their time more positively in other areas of their life, whether working on the team more or pursuing a different avenue of life that they wanted to do. I heard Rick's building houses in Mildura, that sounds like a fun thing to do. So it's pretty much all I got to say about the subject, but I just think it's an interesting thing. Probably because when I was a kid, Rick Kelly was like the up-and-coming great driver, and he was with the best team, and he was doing a great job, winning lots of races, won the championship, won Bathurst, and the babyface. He was like the new babyface assassin, like Glenn Seaton was. Doesn't matter how old he is, he still looks like he's really young, and that's why everybody loved him. And also, he was he would come across as being a little bit shy, he knew how to work with the people. I've got a signature from him in 2019 and 2020, and then 2006. Oh, and 2002. You could always say, oh, Rick should have stayed at Walkinshaw, he should have stayed there and won the championship again. It should have been Garth and Rick in the HRT cars in 2008, and then they would have just beaten everyone. Mark Skaife should have retired at the end of 2007, stuff like that. You know, all the what-ifs. But Rick Kelly did it, and he ticked all the boxes, and then he drove for another 14 years. I suppose then there's the other thing when you're a driver is it still fun? Are you still enjoying doing it? Because he was obviously able to do it, the funding was there for him to do it, it was his team. I read from Mark Skaife's book, Skaife Life in the Fast Lane, the year that he retired, he'd drive into the racetrack and he'd be thinking about other stuff. He wouldn't be thinking about racing. He'd be thinking about what's going on at home, and that's when he knew that he had to stop. Maybe the real interesting thing for Rick Kelly was that he just sort of stopped appearing in any articles, in anything. We would see Todd in the pits because he was team principal, but now he's retired completely from racing. But he's got his son Mason is racing. Obviously Rick's kids are a fair bit younger. But yeah, that's all I got to say about that. I'm just sort of rambling. Let me know what you think. If you've got anything interesting to say about why a driver retires, or anything you want to say about Rick Kelly, we can talk about it. Alright, see ya.